पास ने काफी चीजें ऑक्युपाई करके रखी हुई हैं। उसमें से एक सदर्न मंगोलिया है, उसके जो प्रेसिडेंट हैं ऑफ सदर्न मंगोलियन ह्यूमन राइट्स इंफॉर्मेशन सेंटर, मिस्टर एनगेबाटू, ही इज विथ अस, वो हमसे जुड़े हैं न्यूयॉर्क से। और दूसरा हमारे साथ हैं ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान के डॉक्टर आला। वो बॉर्न इन ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान थे, फिर ऑस्ट्रेलिया में इस समय सेटल है, वो ऑस्ट्रेलिया से हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं। बाय प्रोफेशन फिजिशियन है, बट ही इज ऑल्सो एक्टिविस्ट इन ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान। मैं आप लोगों को आज बता दूं, क्योंकि उन लोगों को हिंदी भाषा नहीं आती है, तो उन लोगों के साथ हमारी जो ज्यादा बातचीत होगी वो हो सकता है कि अंग्रेजी में होती रहे। नाउ वी कम टू वेलकम मिस्टर Enghebatu, who is from southern Mongolia. Sam Beno is the cultural greetings in Mongolia. And he is the president of Southern Mongolian Human Rights Information Center. For me, the more exciting thing about Enghebatu, other than being from the Southern Mongolia, is he is a writer also. He has written on the genocide on Mongolian steppe. That is, I mean, it is always exciting to interact with people who are writers, because they have a longer, I will say, they have a longer thing on which we can talk, because they have a posture, they have taken a stand on certain things, and which we can discuss and talk. Now we have also Dr. Ala with us, who is from East Turkestan. Now many of my audience understands that China is a big country. China is the largest as far as population is concerned, as far as area, but they don't understand that China is one country which has occupied a lot of countries, and out of which three representatives of three countries who are having their freedom struggle are with us. Now we will be taking questions with each one of them. First of all, generally we go with Tibet, as she is a lady. But here, excuse me, you will pardon me for that, because we will
no problem.
We will start from the north.
Yes.
North and then west, and then
great.
So we will go it that way. We start with Mongolia. Now, Mongolia for an average Indian is
Southern Mongolia.
Yeah, Southern Mongolia. And Southern
Yes.
Mongolia is, for an average Indian, is some place where you get a lot of wrestlers and a lot of people who can ride. And we also have memories of Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan and things like that in our history. Now, Southern Mongolia was annexed by China in 1949. It has 1.2 million square kilometer of area, and it has 6 million population still staying in Southern Mongolia. Under, in a way, they more or less, China is treating them as a colony. I'm using a harsh words because we have, I mean, what we have suffered during British rule. That is what is happening. I'm coming to Mr. Enghebatu, straight to you, and pardon me, my pronunciation for certain might be wrong. You will excuse me for that and pardon me for that. Is it true that at some point of time, as Mongolians claim, that China was part of Mongolia?
Yes, in history, as you know, the Mongolia had the largest the contiguous land empire in human history, and at that time, yes, China was certainly part of Mongolia, and the Mongolian empire was later divided into two smaller empires. One of them is Yuan dynasty, which is covering not only China but also large part of East Asia and Mongolia. Yes, China was part of Mongolian empire, no question. But unfortunately, China used this credential, being part of the Mongolian empire. Later on, China claimed many other countries as part of China, which is very illogical and irrational, but they kept using the illogical claim over many territories and many nations, including Tibet and East Turkestan. They called that it was part of China because they were part of Yuan dynasty, which is actually not the Chinese empire at all. China Chinese people were actually the subject of the nation, the empire, not the ruler of the empire. So, but anyway, China has been using this credential as. That's why even very famous Chinese writer Lu Xun said that if one can use the credential of being enslaved by other nation, then Russia has more credential to claim that our Mongolia, because they were enslaved by, occupied by Mongolia for 240 years.
Now, I will come to a quick question, because in Chinese, whenever you go and Chinese refer you as Inner Mongolia.
Yes.
And for an average student of history in India, I'm talking of average student, Mongolia is one Mongolia. Now, then when we read and then we understand there is a North Mongolia, which is called Mongolia today, and there is a South Mongolia, which is occupied by Chinese. So why they call it Inner Mongolia?
Okay, the very good question. Mongolia was, is a one nation, has been one nation until the early 20th century, right? So especially Southern Mongolia and Northern Mongolia, they were the same, same part of Mongolia. But the China started using Inner Mongolia as part of their territorial claim over this part of Mongolia, claiming that inner means this is inside of China. And then they even call the independent country of Mongolia, normally, traditionally we call Northern Mongolia, as Outer Mongolia. There's when they use this inner and outer, of course, this is the English translation, direct translation of the Chinese Sinocentric terminology called neighbouring and Waimango, which is claiming that this part of Mongolia is the Chinese inner territory, and the other one is outer because it's the independent country. So yes, unfortunately, the Western language, especially in English, it was directly translated from this Chinese highly propagandistic, highly Sinocentric terminology in Neimango, translated from this terminology. But in our own language, we call ourselves just Over Mongol, which means southern part of the Mongolia, and Mongolian nation of Mongolia, and independent country of Mongolia as Northern Mongolia or Outer Mongol. There's no meaning of inner and outer at all in this language, in this two terminology, original Mongolian terminologies.
Thank you. I will come to Dr. Ala. Dr. Ala, as far as East Turkestan is concerned, I mean, again, very few people in India understand that it is a very neighboring country of India. I mean, between Pakistan and China, now which we call Xinjiang province or autonomous state, it is primarily your country, East Turkestan. Now, East Turkestan somehow has a very mixed population. Population is a mixed culture. Now, you have Yuzi, you have Sakas, you have all these mixed people. So how as a nation you have a common goal, or only few people are for independent and the rest of people are comfortable with China?
Yes, as you're right, that the East Turkestan is located in a very geographically significant location, and at this, in ancient time there was a very flourished Silk Road going through the East Turkestan. And now let us focus on your question in the sense that in East Turkestan we have mainly Turkic-speaking peoples, including Uyghurs, Kazakhs, Uzbeks, and Kyrgyz, etc. They worship Islam and also Mongols as well. That's why we have one Mongol area. And historically, Uyghurs and the Mongols lived together side by side. Even Uyghurs participated in the Mongol expansionism in the Asia and beyond. And And also apart from that, also there are also some other what the Chinese call is ethnic minorities. Actually, they are not minorities, but this is also, as our friend from South Mongolia said, that it's like a xenocentric terminology that we are as minorities, whereas China is only a majority, which is called like dichotomy between big brother and small brothers type of a political dichotomy. Anyway, so historically, let me give you the very good political paradigm that we created during the Second World War. That we created the Second East Turkestan Republic. This republic was the joint efforts of all these nations, apart from Han Chinese, including like Uyghurs, Mongols, Hui Muslims, and others. And all this, the ethnic groups or nationalities had their own unique army forces or divisions at that time. So we created this republic together. So it's not difficult for us to recreate the same kind of republic in the future with the mixture of or the joint efforts of these nationalities again. So I am not afraid of that one, as long as and also it's of course the issue is now far more complicated because now we have lots of Han Chinese who were born in East Turkestan, who have been in that soil for more than 3 or 4 decades, of course. Then in the future, of course, then we will have a very peaceful political dialogue as well as negotiations with all these nationalities to create our common East Turkestan Republic again.
And in fact, I will also like to tell my audience that in size, East Turkestan is 1.66 million square kilometers. Just to give you some idea, that it is half of India. We are about 3.2 million square kilometers. I'm just giving a very rough. East Turkestan is half of India, what we are talking. So we are talking of a very large chunk of land, large chunk of country, a very big country in terms of. But Dr. Ala, I just want to understand one more thing, because it came all in newspaper and things like that. That there was some 2009, there was some protest and something went on in East Pakistan, and then the Chinese came very heavily on you. And in the Western world, it was reported very mildly that not only people were put in jail, but even there was a forced sterilization, the abortions were there, and the Western world wrote that the women have to share beds with Chinese officials, which amounts to rape in a way. I mean, if I'm allowed to be with a lady sitting in the, it should not be said, but even the modesty of a woman was not there. So Chinese are so brute on these things.
Yes, as the incident that you mentioned was a turning point in our political history, that it was a reaction to another kind of brawl happened in Guangdong province, where some Uyghurs were killed by Han Chinese within a factory. They worked in the same factory, and there was a rumors that that Uyghurs did some kind of immoral action to Han Chinese ladies, etc. It was rumors, but then Han Chinese were very aggressive and they killed the Uyghurs, and this video was circulated on the media or on online. And so Uyghurs got this information and they tried to bring justice to the perpetrators of this incident happened in Guangdong. But instead of the Chinese government responded to the very legal requests of the Uyghurs who took to the streets to protest against this event, they crushed the Uyghurs, and resulting in deaths of many thousand Uyghurs and also Han Chinese as well. But then Chinese media, which was extremely powerful at that time and still powerful now, that they portrayed Uyghurs as thugs or terrorists or everything, and that was the turning point in the general perceptions of the Han Chinese, and even some other people, foreigners at that time, deeply influenced by the Chinese media, that it was caused by Uyghurs. Instead, the reason was just the other way around. So since then, China stepped up its efforts to suppress Uyghurs further in the name of anti-terrorism. So China is the great benefactors, one of the great benefactors of anti-terrorism. So China has portrayed any kind of like resistance against China's rule with a anti-terrorism, and they categorize everything within this category. And afterwards, and Uyghurs try to maintain their culture, in particular their religious culture, but China didn't allow them to do so. And also at that time, suddenly China's government released some restrictions by issuing passports to Uyghurs, and they even forcing Uyghurs to go overseas to see a variety of countries, in particular the Islamic countries. And then after when they came back, and then there was trouble started. Trouble started when Xi Jinping assumed its power as a chairman of CCP, and also Xi Jinping brought Chen Quanguo, who was a previous party secretary in Tibet, to East Turkestan. So this both men, as well as other Chinese officials, is created a special plan to eradicate Uyghur culture and ultimately eliminate Uyghurs as a whole. And the example that you gave us is part of the whole genocidal attempt at Uyghurs as a whole. This is Chinese officials were forced to relocate into Uyghur houses, where Uyghur men were taken into concentration camps where only Uyghur ladies and kids left. And this Chinese officials slept with this family. And as you said, this was a state-sanctioned rape. It's massive and systematic rape. And not only that, but then these concentration camps were revealed to the world in 2018. And since then, China has never stopped to eradicate Uyghurs inside and outside of the concentration camps, and of which rape is one of the examples. And there's also lots of other crimes against humanity are happening inside and outside of camps. For example, organ harvesting, deaths, and indoctrination, and also a forced or slave labor, which outside and inside of labor camps. So to summarize that, Uyghurs, since that event, Uyghurs have been subject to very heavy-handed oppression, ultimately a genocide. That's the result of this policy.
I will come to Madam MP Dolkar. I'm taking the liberty of talking in Hindi because few of my audience will be more comfortable with the permission of my other two guests.
बिल्कुल
डोलकर मैम, आपसे एक चीज है, जैसे आप आप तो हिंदुस्तान में रह के आपने पूरा अपना मूवमेंट आप लोग चला रहे हैं, उसकी आपको अभी रिसेंट टाइम्स में ऐसा नहीं लगा कि आपने एक लीडरशिप का रोल ले लिया है एज फार एज ये ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान, साउथ मंगोलिया, फिर हांगकांग, फिर इन सब लोगों को मिलके आपको एक लीडरशिप का रोल इस समय आपके ऊपर नेतृत्व की भी जिम्मेदारी आ गई. You have a responsibility to lead this movement of especially the countries which are being oppressed by China. So in this new role, do you have more responsibility?
पहले तो नमस्कार सभी रिपब्लिक के दर्शकों का, और आनंद जी, थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग अस. मैं बहुत खुश हूँ इस बार मैं अपने मंगोलाइट और उइगर भाई के साथ आई हूँ आपके साथ बात करने के लिए. No, I'm comfortable. I'll try to. जी, so it's lovely to be here and lovely to be in presence of both of you. So it's fantastic. मैं ये कहना चाहूँगी कि जो मूवमेंट और जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग सिर्फ तिब्बत का नहीं, पर सदर्न मंगोलिया के ऊपर या इस तुर्किस्तान के ऊपर जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग इंडिया में जागरूकता जो अभी जो उठा है, मुझे लगता है काफ़ी लेट से उठा है, पर हमें ये भी लगता है कि लेट हो फिर भी उठा तो सही. तो मैं मानती हूँ कि एक बार ये जो इंटरेस्ट जो उठा है उसको बरकरार रखते हुए हमें लगता है कि इसको सिर्फ एक एजुकेशन के तरह नहीं, उससे आगे एक एक्शन के रूप में लेना चाहिए. क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग कहते हैं कि ये तिब्बत का इशू है, हमें इससे क्या लेना देना, हम चाइना के साथ पंगा क्यों लें. बहुत सारे लोग कहते हैं और ये जस्टिफाइड है. पर इम्पोर्टेंट बात यह है कि इसका पूरी तरह से लेना देना है इंडिया के साथ। अगर भारत ये चाहते हैं कि भारत सिक्योर हो, अभी जो इंडिया जो है सबसे ज्यादा खतरा इंडिया के ऊपर है चीन की तरफ से। कोई और इंडिया का नेबर इंडिया के ऊपर इस तरह का व्यवहार या अटैक नहीं कर पाए जितना चीन। और जितना इंडिया का पैसा हम खर्च करता है, वो जो इंडो तिब्बत बॉर्डर जो है जो चीन के साथ है, उसके ऊपर जितना खर्चा करते हैं कहीं और जगह पर नहीं करते हैं। इसकी वजह से हमें ये पता चलना चाहिए कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है। और इसी वजह से हम ये चाहते हैं कि जो मूवमेंट जो है, हम ये नहीं मानते कि हम इसमें तिब्बत जो है हम इसमें लीड कर रहे हैं। हमें ये लगता है कि जो हमारे इस तुर्किस्तान के भाई बहन है, जो सदर्न मंगोलियन के भाई बहन है, हमारे हांगकांग में, ताइवान में, हम एक अलायंस की तरह साथ में काम कर रहे हैं। और यहाँ पर हम सब एक ही विक्टिम है। और जो हमें विक्टिमाइज किया है ये अथॉरिटेरियन इंपीरियलिस्ट चाइनीज गवर्नमेंट की वजह से। तो हमें ये लगता है कि हम सबको साथ में होके चाइना के साथ निपटना है। और सिर्फ हम सब नहीं, स्पेशली जो पूरे इंडो पैसिफिक में जो देश है, हमें सब साथ में मिलकर चाइना को ठोस तरीके से जवाब देना चाहिए। अगर नहीं करेंगे, वो अभी हमें ये पता चलना चाहिए कि बहुत बड़ा बुली बन गया है चाइना। तो वो सिर्फ छोटे देशों के ऊपर नहीं, इंडिया के ऊपर 62 से वही कर रहा है। और वो अब भी खुश नहीं है। अभी उनका जैसे आपने अभी सुना था, हमारे सदर्न मंगोलिया और उइगुर के स्पीकर्स की तरफ से वो वही कर रहा है। जैसे सदर्न मंगोलिया के ऊपर लेके वो देखते हैं नॉर्थ मंगोलिया के ऊपर। क्यों देखते हैं? ऐसा मानते हैं कि वो भी उनका हिस्सा है। वही तरह से वो लद्दाख और अरुणाचल के ऊपर देखते हैं, बोलते हैं कि वो तिब्बत का हिस्सा है, मतलब हमारा हिस्सा है। तो मतलब ये एक ऐसा देश है जिसका इंपीरियलिज्म अब तक उनका पेट नहीं भरा। तो इसकी वजह से हमें लगता है सिर्फ हम सब साथ नहीं, पूरे सदर्न इंडो पैसिफिक एशियन नेशन जो है, हम सबको साथ में मिलकर चाइना को चैलेंज करना चाहिए।
मैं एक और इससे, there is a related question to this, because why I am asking is you have culturally we have a lot of things in common when it comes to India and Tibet. We
Yes.
the first and foremost thing is Gautam Buddha.
Buddhism, yes.
And then your adoption of Gandhi's principle of non-violence and things like that. What is common there with South Mongolia or East Turkestan? Because culturally, language-wise, they are absolutely different countries. And
Yes.
you have only one common binding factor is that it is China is oppressing them, so we have a common thing to throw back China. Because today you are also talking of the national what is it, Taiwan. Taiwan, maybe in today's thing as a strategy, it is very good to align with Taiwan. But how good Taiwan will be, they are part and parcel of the same Chinese regime. The way India is looking at it. So maybe to take care of the Republic of China, we may. So what is common in the long term? It is not a one-day thing. It is going to be a long independence war. So with South Mongolia and East Turkestan, your confederation, how long you will go together? Because your means are different. You talk of non-violence.
Yes, I think we have to clarify one thing. This whole idea of non-violence is something that is being adapted not just by the Tibetans, but I believe, as much as my knowledge, by Southern Mongolia and East Turkestan as well. जो टेररिज्म का धब्बा लगा है इस तुर्किस्तान के ऊपर, वो चाइना का प्रोपेगेंडा है। वो जो जो इस्लामिक का जो होल पूरे विश्व में जो आइडिया है, उसको इस्तेमाल करके एक देश के ऊपर फेंक रहा है। इसलिए मैं मानती हूँ कि अब तक अगर हम जो भी मूवमेंट हो रहा है चीन के शासन के अगेंस्ट, अब देखें तो हमें ये पता चलेगा किसी ने जो हमने कोशिश की थी मिलिटरीली चाइना को चैलेंज करने के लिए, क्योंकि हम उस समय इंडिपेंडेंट नेशन थे। पर जब से हमने अपने देश को खोया है, जब से चाइना ने पूरी तरह से हमें कब्जा किया है, और स्पेशली जब हम एग्जाइल में आए हैं, हमने पूरी तरीके से एक नॉन वायलेंस के मूवमेंट को एम्बार्क किया है। हमें लगता है कि सिर्फ हम नहीं, सदर्न मंगोलिया और ईस्ट तुर्किस्तान दोनों ने इसको अडॉप्ट किया है। तो इसी वजह से ये जो प्रिंसिपल है, तो वो बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग एक प्रिंसिपल है। और जो नॉन वायलेंस का प्रिंसिपल है, वो ये दो देश सिर्फ इंडिया के साथ नहीं, बहुत सारे देश जो नॉन वायलेंट टैक्टिक को मानते हैं, उसको निझाड़ते हैं। आई थिंक all of us, we consider that important, and that is the reason why we come together. उसके ऊपर अगर हम बात करें हमारे बुद्धिज्म की, तो most when it comes to southern Mongolia, most of the southern Mongolians are Buddhists as well, and the special relations that Mongolians and Tibetans have shared in our history is especially because of Buddhism, how we exchanged this relationship of brothers. And I'm not very keen on using the word brother, because China really exploited the word brother by calling Indians brother, but I still want to say that we were good brothers. We could have been an example of good, brotherhood. So that was the situation. So, वो एक तरह सा, पास में अगर फिर भी हमारा उतना स्ट्रॉन्ग रिलेशन नहीं रहा है, हमें लगता है जो हमारा प्रेजेंट है और जो हमारा भविष्य है, उसको देखते हुए हमारा रिलेशन एक पेन का, एक दर्द की वजह से, एक दुखद सिचुएशन की वजह से हम सब एक साथ में है, और वो हमें लगता है बहुत जरूरत है। क्योंकि अगर इंडिया में भी देखें उस समय, क्योंकि हम इंडिया में पूरे इंडियंस फाइट कर रहे थे ब्रिटिश के अगेंस्ट, उस समय जितना क्लोज इंडिया हुआ था उतना शायद पता नहीं कब हुआ था। तो इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट, इट्स वेरी नेचुरल, ह्यूमन टेंडेंसी है। अगर एक एनिमी हमें मिल जाए तो हम सब इकट्ठे होते हैं, क्योंकि हमें पता है कि वही एक हमारा दुश्मन है, जिसको अगर हमें उनको निकालना है, हमें सब साथ में काम करके निकालना चाहिए। तो इसी हिसाब से वी आर वर्किंग टुगेदर, एंड आई थिंक perhaps I would suggest to my, Southern Mongolian and Uyghur brothers that we are not doing too much alliance as we should. I think in future we've got to do more. We have done a lot of work together, and I think we've got to do more in future if we want to bring down the Chinese Communist Party. And I think we're all determined to do that. And with the help of free countries like India, we will be able to establish that.
Mr. Enghebatu, I'm coming to you because when we are talking of, always when we talk of Mongolia, Mongolia has a very has a history which they must be proud of it, and any country must be proud of it. Now, today, what is happening? What is your North Mongolia? Why they are not coming forward, helping you out, trying to? I mean, somehow, because they are also not very comfortable with Russia knocking on their door. They have their own problems. A lot of your Mongolian region has been taken by Soviet Union or Russia, whatever you call it. So, what is your relationship with the North Mongolian people?
So, Northern Mongolia and Southern Mongolia were, as I mentioned earlier, were same country. Mongolians on both sides are still considering we are the same nation. And as for the question about why Northern Mongolia is not helping, in fact, they have been helping, especially at the just citizens level. The government is a different story. You know how China is bullying their neighbors and exerting pressure on the neighboring countries. As you know, Mongolia is sandwiched between the only two big power like Russia and China, and so the Mongolia has to keep a very delicate balance between these two to survive. So it's not an easy task for them to keep the balance between these two, and also maintain their sovereignty and helping Southern Mongolia, which is part of China. And so if you look at the most recent protests that took place in Southern Mongolia in the past 2 months. The protest was against the Chinese government, central government's plan to wipe out the Mongolian language entirely from the educational system across Southern Mongolia in the name of implementing the so-called second generation bilingual education. So the entire Southern Mongolian population rose up stand up against this policy, and took to the streets, and they launched the general school strike. And so Chinese government to really mobilize their police and all the right apparatus to the crackdown on the protests. In the same time, citizens from independent country of Mongolia, not only just from independent country of Mongolia, but also from Buryat and Kalmyk, as well as from people from Hazara communities around the world, also supported this protest, and they staged many protests in front of the Chinese embassies around the world in showing their solidarity to Southern Mongolia. So Northern Mongolia, especially the citizens of independent country of Mongolia, are very supportive, very sympathetic to what's happening in Southern Mongolia. But unfortunately, again, as I mentioned earlier, the government of China has a lot of influence in their neighboring countries, not just in Mongolia. Every countries, including Nepal, Kazakhstan, all these neighboring countries are under tremendous pressure and by the Chinese government. So regarding the nonviolent method you mentioned earlier, yes, Mongolians have been nonviolent, peaceful for really, in history. They're never been violent against Chinese, and so they, especially if you look at the recent protest and demonstration, it's typical. It's a very typical nonviolent civil disobedient resistance movement. So they had used no violence at all, and even their slogans are very practical slogans. They just wanted to defend their right to use their native language, which is in fact guaranteed by not only by the international human rights standard, but also by the Chinese constitution and Chinese ethnic minority on autonomy law. So Chinese are the people who are really violent against not only the Mongolians, but also against the Tibetans, Uyghurs. All the three nations, occupied nations, were very peaceful. They don't even have any choice of being violent. I mean, so they have been very peaceful, but again, the true violent forces Chinese regime. It's not only violent, it's a terrorism. It's a state terrorism. Not only terrorizing these occupied three nations, but also terrorizing their own people. 1.5 billion people are suffering under this authoritarian regime.
One more thing, because quickly we just want to know about the world knows about Genghis Khan, the world knows about the Kublai Khan. You have another hero as Hatahu, the Southern Mongolian Democratic Allies. We
Yes.
just want to know something about the Hatahu, his struggle when he was in jail, and very quickly.
Right.
Can just
Mr. Hada is the leader of Southern Mongolian independence movement, which is still alive very active alive and in Southern Mongolia now. Mr. Hada was arrested in 1995 and sent to 15 years sentenced to 15 years in jail on charges of separatism and engaging in espionage, which is trumped up case, of course. And he served the full sentence of 15 years in jail, and then he was supposedly to be released in December 2010, but he was again because of his complete rejection of admitting to any crime that he was alleged to committed. So he never accepted the authorities' claim, and he refused to cooperate with the authorities. That's why he was sentenced to, not even sentenced, he was actually sent to another black jail for another 4 years without any charges. And then in 2014, he was transferred to an apartment which is run and owned by the Public Security Bureau, which means he is effectively under house arrest even now. But Hada has never given up his goal, organizational goal, which is the full independence of Southern Mongolia. Whenever he got a chance, he was publicly speaking, saying that their organization and Southern Mongolia are fighting for the complete independence. That is why it is extremely rare case within this kind of under this kind of authoritarian circumstances. People like Hada can continue to advocate the independence of Southern Mongolia. So Chinese government really do not know how to. They don't know how to handle this hardened dissident or hero. So who is really, I mean, he's never giving up. He said that as long as he's his life, he will continue to fight for the independence of Southern Mongolia. So he's our hero, national hero, and he's still advocating for the independence in China.
We will call him as your Gandhi of South Mongolia, as far as we are.
Absolutely. We call him actually our Gandhi too. Yeah, actually we have been calling him our Gandhi.
Dr. Ala, I was coming to you because there is another thing which is going on with a lot of people in India. Because you have a East Turkestan National Awakening Movement, ETNA, but also there are charges, and they are Chinese sponsored, they are Pakistani sponsored, that there is another East Turkestan Islamic Terror Center. And it is generally said that all the terrorist activities and all these camps and all Osama bin Laden and things like that, they have a place in East Turkestan where they can go have their training camps and things like that. I just want your reaction on that, because that is something where Indians are very sensitive about these terrorist activities and things like that. Somehow, why Indian? The entire world.
So this East Turkestan Islamic movement has been operative since 1990s. Operative in the sense that even I am a activist, political or non-political. I have no knowledge of this organization, first of all. And secondly, they claim the responsibility for some bombings or this kind of things in 1990s, but still then they disappeared. And still we don't know who was responsible for that. And after 9/11, and the Chinese government stepped up the rhetoric of anti-terrorism by pointing on this organization with the links to Al-Qaeda at that time and later on. And it's like they appear online with a very harsh sloganism against China, saying that even right before the genocide happened, they say that we would make China exposed to a river of blood. And now they have disappeared, and they have never ever shown its like true face or true strengths. And we still consider this as a shadow, even China-backed a organization, because of the simple fact that, secondly, this organization is supposed to be operative inside and outside of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And as you know, that the Pakistani intelligence has very close relationship with Chinese intelligence. And even I read a report a long ago that actually the Pakistani intelligence had the kind of agreement, a contract with Chinese intelligence to monitor the Uyghur activities inside and outside of Pakistan. So this relationship has been quite fruitful. And if that's the case, it's still highly doubtful that China cannot catch the members of EGIM inside and outside the country with or without the assistance of Pakistan, etc. So, but the alleged existence of this organization is dreadful for Uyghurs. I mean, all innocent Uyghurs, because they appear online threatening China and they disappear. And right after that, China steps up its so-called legitimate the suppression of Uyghurs. And when the Uyghurs are wondering that where is this organization now, then nobody can find this organization. And this organization, for example, if they are that very Islamic oriented, etc., and Chinese government has vilified Islam, destroyed mosques, destroyed the all Islamic institutions since long time ago, I would say that. But this organization hasn't done anything. Even China has very strong presence in Pakistan. If this organization in Pakistan, then they have done nothing at all. Instead of doing anything, they are helping China vilify the image of Uyghurs as potential terrorists for the world. And in that sense, I say that this organization doesn't exist. If it exists, it only exists for the sake of China to legitimize its suppression of Uyghurs.
Dr. Ala, one more thing, because we have our neighbors, we have our problems. I mean, India has our problems with our neighbors. We have our strained relationship. But that is more on a government-to-government basis. When it comes to, person to person, citizen to citizen, and average Indian and all our neighbors, we have a lot of things in common. We feel that it is basically politics which is doing all these things. Why you don't have, what is your relationship with Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, which have a lot of things in common with you? So is it politics which is keeping you away, or it is something else?
This is a good question. Actually, all these peoples are called Turkic people, speaking almost the same Turkic languages. And we share common historical heritage, cultural heritage, linguistic heritage, etc., etc. And as we discussed today, there's a very good point that there's a two levels of relation. One is governmental level. Second one is the people-to-people level. So from people-to-people level, Uyghurs and other Turkic nationalities in the other side of Turkestan, its relationship is more or less good. But at the government levels, the Chinese government has very close relationship with this government. Hence, their sympathy is almost zero, and they haven't shown any kind of overt sympathy at the government level to the suffering of Uyghurs. So far, even they have had a very notorious history of cooperating with Chinese government. But at the ground level, its relationship is good. But at the same time, these governments are also heavily influenced by the Chinese propaganda that some of the Kazakhs and Kyrgyz and others consider Uyghurs as very potentially dangerous people or terrorists, etc., which is quite a sad reality. So in that sense, it's true that the Uyghur genocide hasn't elicited any sympathy from these governments, as well as some parts of the peoples as well. So I could ascribe this to the very heavy and successful Chinese diplomacy, economical promises, and as well as propaganda.
Thank you, Madam MP Dolkar. I come back to you. A very quick thing, because in some of your recent interviews or some lectures I have heard, you always call China as an aggressive child, destroying nations which are bordering it. मतलब चाइना एक ऐसा बच्चा है जो अपने अगल बगल के लोगों को जरूर कुछ ना कुछ तकलीफ पहुंचाता है, दुख पहुंचाता है. और आपने एक चीज और कही है, you have said कि there is a more hope for Tibet in the recent Galwan Valley, the way they tried to bully India. So I just want to understand why you say that there is more hope for Tibet, reference with Galwan Valley.
I mentioned those statements because I feel like now it's evident, actually. More Indians know about the fact that India shares the northern border with Tibet and North China, that they share the border with China occupy Tibet. And that was a reality that the public of the country was not aware of, or they were completely ignorant about or indifferent about. So that was the reason why I said it, because now India, the people of the country have understood why China has been attacking India since 1962. Now they know that the propaganda that they have been spreading across the nation, saying that China is attacking India because of the presence of the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan exile government, as if the Tibetans and the His Holiness the Dalai Lama are burdens for India, and therefore do we have to get into this? So those were the discussions that were happening. But because of what happened in Galwan Valley, now people know the reality that the intention of China is extending their imperialist policy, and they would do that at any extent and completely disregard any form of agreements that they have shared with India. India, who consider, perhaps until Galwan Valley happened, they continued to consider China as a bhai. But because of Galwan, now they've opened their eyes, and it is in this hope that I expected India, and I still expect, and I still hope that the government of, not just the people of India, but government of India would speak up for Tibet and realize that if India intends to secure the nation on the northern border, then the only way is a free and independent Tibet. If India wishes to, offer a secured future for the coming generation of India.
I understand that. One of your colleagues, Sundu, has beautifully said, he came to one of our conference, and then he purposely asked people that you have a ITBP, and people said yes. Then he said, what do you mean by Indo-Tibetan Border Police? We said it is Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Then he said, why you call it a Chinese border? And it is something that we must realize, that if we have a ITBP, then it has to be Indo-Tibetan border. There's no doubt on that.
Yes.
One more small thing which I wanted to understand from you, that suppose you do some agitation, something here in outside Tibet. No, you are 1.5 million outside in exile, and you have 6 million people there in Tibet. So are they affected? Because if you do something with the, any movement, any of these things, those are the people under the clutches of Chinese. So are they are tortured, or they are subject to some violence or something like that? People in Tibet.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. क्योंकि what is happening at the Indo-Tibet border, वो एक extension है जो तिब्बत में हो रहा है. जो जिस तरह का शोषण, जिस तरह का अत्याचार टिबेटन्स के साथ हो रहा है तिब्बत में, वो एक एक्सटेंशन और एक बिगिनिंग हो रहा है अभी इंडो तिब्बत बॉर्डर में. और जो तिब्बत में है अब तक, जिसने भी एक हमारे पास, हमारे हिस्टोरिकल इंडिपेंडेंट नेशन के बारे में सवाल उठा है, जागरूकता पैदा करने की कोशिश की है, या जो अभी जो थर्ड और फोर्थ जनरेशन के जो टिबेटन्स है तिब्बत के अंदर, जिन्होंने एक बेसिक सी बात, जैसे हमारे लैंग्वेज के बारे में, हमारे संस्कृति के बारे में, हमारे कल्चर के बारे में बात करने की कोशिश की है, उनको बहुत स्ट्रांगली से चुप कराने की कोशिश की है. जब मैं चुप कराने की बोले, वो बहुत सॉफ्ट शब्द है. उनके हिसाब से टिबेटन्स को चुप कराने का तरीका है टॉर्चर करना चाइनीज प्रिजन्स में. मैं इसके बारे में क्यों बोल रही हूँ, क्योंकि जो मेरे लेट फादर थे, वो भी 20 साल से ज्यादा चाइनीज प्रिजन में रहा है. और जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में मैं पहले काम करती थी, जो गुजुसु मूवमेंट है, उसमें उन सब मेंबरशिप जो है पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर्स और उनके फैमिली मेंबर्स है, जो तो वो सब है उन सब के टेस्टिमनीज के हिसाब से. और जो रियलिटी जो तिब्बत में है, किसी ने भी या तिब्बत के एनवायरमेंटल डिस्ट्रक्शन के बारे में बात करने की कोशिश की है, या जो तिब्बत में बहुत जोरों शोरों से अभी जो माइनिंग हो रहा है उसके बारे में सवाल उठाने के बाद के कोई भी क्वेश्चन जो उनके पावर के अगेंस्ट उतरता है, उन्होंने सिर्फ एक ही जनरेशन के साथ नहीं, बहुत जनरेशन के साथ उन्होंने टॉर्चर एक्सपीरियंस किया है, और उसका एग्जाम्पल तिब्बत में बहुत सारे हैं। और मैं एक छोटी सी एग्जाम्पल हूँ, क्योंकि मुझे चाइनीज गवर्नमेंट की वजह से हमें फोर्स किया है एक एग्जाइल्ड टिबेटन की तरह पैदा होने के लिए। अगर तिब्बत एक फ्री नेशन होता तो मैं एक तिब्बत फ्री एंड इंडिपेंडेंट तिब्बत की एक सिटीजन होती। तो वो एक छोटी सी एग्जांपल है। और तिब्बत में बहुत सारे टॉर्चर के एग्जांपल है, जिसकी वजह से तिब्बतन्स अपनी वॉइस को उठाने की कोशिश करते हैं, और ये उम्मीद रखते हैं जो फ्री नेशन है, स्पेशली जो इंडियन गवर्नमेंट है, वो बात करेंगे हमारे लिए, हमारे सुरक्षा के लिए, हमारे फ्यूचर के लिए। तो हमें लगता है कि अब तक इन द पास्ट जो हम है, जो फ्री कंट्रीज में टिबेटन से, हमने जब भी तिब्बत के विषय में बात करने की कोशिश की, हम बाहर जाते हैं, इंडिया के बाहर जाते हैं, वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज के पास जाते हैं, यूनाइटेड नेशंस के पास जाते हैं, और पूछते हैं प्लीज सपोर्ट अस। मुझे लगता है अभी एक ऐसा समय आ गया है जब हम बाहर भी जा सकते हैं, और हम इंडिया में रह के इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को, इंडियन पीपल के पास जाके हम बोल सकते हैं प्लीज सपोर्ट अस। क्योंकि ये सिर्फ हमारे बारे में नहीं है, ये आपके लिए भी है। हम दोनों एक एलाई की तरह हो के, एक पार्टनर की तरह हो के खुद को सुरक्षित रख सकते हैं। तो मैं ये फ्यूचर तिब्बत और इंडियन की फ्रेंडशिप के लिए देखती हूँ, ताकि हम दोनों सुरक्षित रहे।
Mr. Enghebatu, I will just understand very quickly. You talk of ecological migration in South Mongolia. Very quickly, just to understand that, my audience want to understand what is this. You talk of ecological migration in South Mongolia.
So ecological migration is part of China's policy toward the nomadic people, including the Mongolians, Southern Mongolians, and also I think some part of Tibet and the nomadic Kazakh people as well. So this policy was implemented in Southern Mongolia first, of course, in starting 2001. The Chinese central government came up with an idea to migrate entire nomadic population from their ancestral land to predominantly Chinese populated urban and agricultural areas in the name of recovering the grassland ecosystem. So Chinese government claimed that the Mongolian grassland ecosystem degradation was caused by the Mongolian backward traditional way of life, which in fact is not true and not the case. Mongolian, in fact, maintained the very delicate balance between man and the nature, using their traditional nomadic way of life for thousands of years on the Mongolian plateau. So they never destroyed the land, but the true cause of the environmental degradation in Southern Mongolia, and especially Southern Mongolian grassland, is nothing but the Chinese intensive agricultural practice and mining and tourism and all sort of Chinese so-called opening up of these areas. So, starting 2001, Chinese central government came up with the new two sets of policies. The first is called ecological migration, or Shengtai Yimin. Under this policy, the entire herders population was targeted, and then they were forcefully removed from their land. And so whoever was resisting or opposing this policy were arrested and sent to jail, and so their livestock was confiscated. Then second policy is the livestock grazing ban. So under this policy, grazing livestock on their own land is considered as a crime. So whoever was grazing the animal on their own land is arrested, and their livestock was confiscated, and the livestock owners are fined and even detained and sent to jail. So this is what the Mongolians consider this as a part of the Chinese cultural genocide, aiming at eradicating the Mongolian traditional way of life completely.
Dr. Ala, I am coming to you for a very quick response, because few of my audience, few of the people, a lot of people in India don't understand.
आनंद जी आप म्यूट है.
Yeah.
Sorry. Dr. Ala, I was just, I mean, a lot of people in India and a lot of people have some confusion regarding East Turkestan and Turkmenistan. Now, if you can very quickly make us understand what are your relationship with Turkmenistan.
Okay, I would prefer to understand this as a linguistic confusion. I have heard this from many people because the East Turkestan and Turkmenistan sound quite close to each other, but actually these are the two different geographical locations as well as nations. But culturally, we have lots of commonalities in terms of the common Turkic language, historical background. But the Turkmenistan was a previous colony of a former Soviet Union. East Turkestan is totally different in this area that we discussed today. So I would, to summarize, so Turkmenistan and East Turkestan, two different countries, but they have lots of cultural similarities.
Okay.
That's, I would say.
And one more thing, you have a government in exile and you have a prime minister. Now, is there any elections, or how you elect them, the prime minister?
Sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Dr. Ala, you have a government in exile.
No, we don't have a government. Yes, we have a East Turkestan.
Prime
yes,
minister.
We have. Sorry.
And you have a prime minister as well.
Yes, I am. So I guess everything is normal, right? So I will talk. So we have East Turkestan government in exile. This government has been quite active recently in terms of raising awareness of the suffering of Uyghurs, and they have a great political aspiration to recreate East Turkestan Republic, which was annexed by the Chinese government in 1949, like Tibet. So, but unlike a Tibetan government in exile, the East Turkestan government in exile is a bit new, and also they are growing rapidly, but still lots of areas in which they need to flourish, need to have a capacity building process. But it's doing better. And also we have a World Uyghur Congress, which advocates for, previously advocates for the human rights of Uyghurs, but now after the genocide has happened, they have also been quite active mainly in Europe and the US to bring this Uyghur issue to the attention of politicians and the governmental and non-governmental organizations. And also we have lots of other smaller organizations across the world.
Madam Dolkar, I mean, you have elections next year, I understand? You have. So your elections are something like, you have seen Indian elections. So you have that.
Absolutely.
So you have that much conversing, and that all the things happen in your elections also?
Well, we do have debates. We are, even though Dr. Mamtimin said that we've been around for a long time, but our exile democracy is a budding democracy. We are still working on it, and I think we are doing a pretty good job, but still we got to work on that. And yes, the elections is coming, and I'll be standing again for the Member of Parliament. There'll be many debates happening. And I'm happy about the fact that one of the core issues that we are raising at the moment is Tibetan freedom movement. And that is something that should be part of our daily courses, should be part of our daily conversation. And elections have been so far a very good platform where we openly discuss about it, of different ideas, different ideologies, and different ways of attaining Tibetan freedom movement. So yes, our exile democracy is very special in a way because it's partyless. We don't have any political parties. We run pretty much as independent candidates. We endorse ourselves. Perhaps you must have seen on my Facebook where I endorse myself as a very capable leader. So everyone's doing the same thing. We believe that we are able to lead. We believe that we can lead, and we aspire to be better, democratic leaders, because we actually do sincerely believe that we are lucky enough to be endowed with democracy by His Holiness Dalai Lama, because we know of how people have wars and battles for democracy. We have actually been bestowed it by His Holiness, where he's told us that this is the right way, and hence the people's got to take responsibility, and hence the people are trying to do what we can by electing the leadership. We will next term we will have a new president, a set of new member of parliaments as well. So yes, and we are striving for a democratic and future, free Tibet. So yes.
Our best wishes for an election. My last question with Enghebatu, it is a closer question. We are running out of time. I just want to understand one quick thing, that anyone from your region has reached or has been successful in Chinese scheme of things, in their Communist Party or in their PLA, or in their business or in Chinese sports. Anyone from Southern Mongolia has been part of the Chinese overall thing? Anyone?
Can you repeat that question again? I'm sorry. Anyone from Southern Mongolia?
Southern Mongolia has reached or has been successful as a Chinese businessman, or as a Chinese Communist Party member, or as a Chinese PLA, or as a Chinese sports person competing in some Olympics or something there? Anyone from, or they just keep you away from all these things?
Well, there have been many successful people from Southern Mongolia. Of course, Chinese claim them as Chinese, right? So especially like, in political field, right? It's just every leaders or whoever from Mongolian background is pretty much just 100% handpicked by the Chinese central government. So there's no such successful leader can exist in the environment of circumstance of Chinese authoritarian regime. So, but yes, in other fields like arts and like sports, yes, there have been many successful Mongolian people, including some singers and also some the sport people, even some the people who won a gold medal in Olympics, and so there have been several from Mongolian background. Yes, but again, they were all stamped as a Chinese citizen, Chinese people, member of Zhonghua nationality, even though they are from Mongolian background.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. We need a more detailed discussion. Time is running out. One of our audience, Tashi Tamang, she is very angry. She says Tibetan, Mongolian, Turkestan, and Taiwanese should do something meaningful anti-Chinese government, not only talk. The lady, or I must acknowledge, yes, we must talk, but please understand, anything has to be done with dialogue. And this is also, if we are talking here, it is not only we are talking, it is a dialogue.
The discussion.
It is discussions and it is reaching people. People are understanding. People. It is not always you will take out a sword or you will take out a pistol and then. In the modern world, this is also a part of that freedom struggle. I wish that all of you in our lifetime, and at least in my lifetime, I have not many years, see a free East Turkestan, a free South Mongolia, and of course, a free Tibet. Thank you so much.